Prime Minister approves infrastructure investment for economic zones. And later on in our crosstalk, cybersecurity and data protection in the digital economy. Hello there and welcome to another edition of BizLine here on VTV International. I'm your host Hoàng Hằng, and let's now take a look at some economic highlights over the past week. Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc has given the green light for infrastructure development worth up to $921 million for economic zones and industrial parks in the 2016-2020 period. The program aims to develop comprehensive technical and social infrastructure for these areas, which will lay the foundation and create favorable conditions to call for and promote large-scale investment projects. By 2020, up to 250 kilometers of main roads, drainage works, and concentrated wastewater treatment and other technical and social infrastructure for resettlement sites will be built in 16 coastal economic zones. Vietnam's Index of Industrial Production, or IIP, in the first quarter of this year gained the highest year-on-year growth rate of 11.6% in the past 3 years. This is according to the General Statistics Office, or GSO. Several major industrial products posted high growth in the first 3 months of this year, including raw steel, powdered milk, television, and fish feed. However, a number of other products recorded low growth or reduction in IIP, such as animal feed, fertilizer, and crude oil. According to the GSO, the highest growth rate of industrial production in the first quarter of this year was partly due to the high growth rate of the consumption market at 14.2% year-on-year, with high consumption of pharmaceuticals, electronic products, computers, and motor vehicles. Despite record high economic growth of 7.38% in the first quarter, Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc has requested agencies, sectors and localities to put in all efforts to achieve the growth target set by the National Assembly. At the government's regular March meeting on Monday, Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc said that exports in the first quarter had risen to 22% compared to last year's at 15%. Processing and manufacturing sectors have also witnessed strong growth. Vietnam has a decreased trade deficit with China of over $5 billion. Meanwhile, the number of international tourists to Vietnam has risen by about 1 million compared to the same period last year. Although the consumer price index increased by only 2.82%, the Prime Minister has asked that the government stay alert of inflation due to the rising crude oil prices. Chinese enterprises importing Vietnamese fruit to the country must provide information about their origin and quality while following import procedures from April the 1st this year. This was announced by the Ministry of Industry and Trade. The Ministry's Asia-Africa Market Department said that the Ministry has recently received requests from provincial authorities to provide origin tracking for Vietnamese fruits imported by China via border gates in Guangxi province. The department said that enterprises must list the names of fruits and their origins, as well as the names or codes of the packaging facilities, either in Chinese or English. In addition, businesses can add labels with the aforementioned information, barcodes, quick response codes, or anti-counterfeiting stamps for inspection. The Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporter and Producers, or VASEP, said that it will go to court to demand that the U.S. Department of Commerce, or DOC, change its decision on the anti-dumping rates for Vietnam's trout fish. Such tariffs are in line with DOC's final decision on the 13th Administrative Review on the anti-dumping duty order on Vietnam's fish fillets during the period of August 1st, 2015 through July 31st, 2016. Compared to preliminary results of the 13th review, the tariffs on fish fillet exporters have surged. For instance, Godang Seafood Company is being subjected to a rate of $3.87 per kilogram in its final decision, instead of a rate of $2.39 per kilogram in the preliminary results announced last September. Other companies are also imposing the same tax rate. The State Bank of Vietnam has tightened lending regulations, stopping domestic and foreign bank branches from disbursing loans in cash as of Monday this week. According to a new circular, lenders will have to disburse loans into bank accounts. According to the central bank, the new circular is aimed to better supervise loans. The disbursement of loans through bank accounts is intended to help commercial banks supervise the use of the loans. The move is intended to lower the rate of non-performing loans. The European Union Intellectual Property Office has granted certification of intellectual protection to 2 models of sedan and SUV cars produced by VinFast Manufacturing and Trading Company Limited. The initial term of protection is 5 years and can be extended 4 times. This means that during the total protection period of up to 25 years, other automakers would not be able to produce or distribute models with designs that are identical or similar to the VinFast models in the EU market. VinFast has also applied to register the industrial designs of the 2 models in other countries, including the United States, Russia, Ukraine, Thailand, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Laos, Cambodia, and Indonesia. Those are some economic highlights over the past week. Up next, we will take a look into cyber attacks risks in Vietnam and solutions proposed for this issue in our crosstalk. Digital economy has been developing strongly in Vietnam for the past 10 years in terms of both infrastructure and the market. Thanks to the increasing number of internet and smart devices users, the digital economy has been utilizing the core technologies of the 4th Industrial Revolution. However, data connection in the digital economy still poses threats for cybersecurity and data protection, which can lead to great losses for enterprises and users. According to top online security firm BKAV, cyber attacks in Vietnam caused loss of more than $542 million last year. To tackle this problem, enterprises and the government need digital and policy-based solutions. This is also the topic of this week's episode of BizLine. But first, let's get to know more about cybersecurity risks in the following clip.
Digitization in Vietnam has shown impressive growth in the past decade. In 2017, 64 million people in Vietnam, approximately 67% of the population, were internet users. This has led to the robust development of digital economy. In 2017, 21 e-commerce startups in Vietnam received foreign investment of $83 million, which is the highest among sectors with foreign investment. According to Vietnam E-commerce Association or VCOM, 43% of enterprises use websites, 15% use mobile apps, and 32% use social networks in their operation. However, digitization also brings higher cybersecurity risks. Kaspersky Security Bulletin for 2017 showed that Vietnam topped the list of countries where users face the highest risk of local infection and ranked 3rd in the top countries attacked by encryptors.
Economical growth of Vietnam attracts criminals. Digitalizing your manufacturing, your economy means that you need to protect it better.
Các cái tấn công hiện nay thay vì là các tấn công đơn lẻ thì là các cái tấn công theo chiến dịch, bao gồm nhiều bước, bao gồm nhiều công cụ, nhiều công nghệ để không những là gây hại cho hệ thống còn đem lại những cái rủi ro về kinh tế.
Many experts agree that the current situation concerning cyber risks amid the digital economy has led to the urgent need to develop more cybersecurity solutions.
So the real challenge of cybersecurity isn't just how to keep us secure. It's how to do that while retaining all of the incredible complexity and opportunity and openness that the internet gives us.
We have invited Mr. Ian Simpson, member of the US-based Information System Audit and Control Association, or ISACA, to our studio today to learn more about security issues in the digital economy in Vietnam. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, technology is integrating deeper and deeper into many sectors of the economy. In your opinion, which sector are experiencing the most notable transformation?
It's my opinion that all sectors are impacted to different degrees by the digital transformation we're seeing at the moment. And I say that because I think all businesses realize the significant advantages that they can get from using technology in its advanced and interconnected form. However, but to narrow it down a little bit, I think the financial sector is leading the way, or definitely one of the early adopters of innovative technology, and this is largely driven through consumer demand for things like ease of access to banking and financial services. Financial institutions in Australia and other countries also are seeing significant productivity gains through the use of things like automation. Manufacturing is definitely an industry that will benefit significantly from use of what they call IoT, Internet of Things devices, for inventory management and warehouse management. So they definitely are impacted in terms of the manufacturing cycle and using robotics again for production.
Which kind of security risks affect this sector, and how severe can the damage be?
But common threats include things like, malware and ransomware, which you've probably heard about. So ransomware is used to extort money from organizations and individual users, and they do that by locking the end user's workstation and only giving access back once a fee or a ransom is paid. So that type of threat can impact all organizations, regardless of the sector within which they operate. A typical example in the financial sector, and as such they are subjected to fraud risk and theft of customer data. So they're the type of risks that the financial institutions must be aware of. An example might be what's called a denial of service attack. So an organisation that has a strong online presence, an internet website for example, or something that is providing consumer services or sales or products, could be impacted by a denial of service attack where legitimate users are no longer able to access that environment, that service, through the denial of service. And that can have a significant impact in terms of recovery costs, customer reputation, loss of revenue, and financial penalties from different regulators as well. So the impacts can be anything from nuisance to complete loss of operation.
Now, what are the causes of cyber risks?
There's other things apart from the bad guys who are trying to do the stuff to us. There's other things that compound the problem, and things such as user awareness here. So user awareness to me is not really, or is a critical issue, but it's not up to the end user to be aware of these risks. It's up to the security community and the businesses to educate end users about these risks. And the more end users are informed and educated, the more difficult it will be for the cyber threat actors to execute their plans. Other things such as vulnerabilities in systems are very important. So systems often get deployed with vulnerabilities which the threat actors take advantage of to commit cyber crime.
At the Security World 2018 Conference and Expo held on April the 5th in Hanoi, more than 300 cybersecurity experts gathered to discuss countermeasures against cybersecurity risks, which have been rising recently in Vietnam. According to Kaspersky's representative, the country's technology level is the main reason for this.
There are a lot of computers with outdated software, and it's easy target for criminals. Large companies, they do invest in security, but they do invest in basic protection mostly. But they don't pay so much attention to targeted attacks.
Experts at Security World 2018 agreed that in order to deal with cyber risks, cyber solutions should be developed. Security solutions for mobile devices have gained popularity as e-commerce in Vietnam has been developing strongly.
Một số ngân hàng có những cái dịch vụ là vân tay mống mắt, nhưng thực chất là những cái dữ liệu đó được lưu ở trên thiết bị của người dùng, và cái vùng lưu trữ này thật sự không an toàn. Tuy nhiên đối với Samsung thì có cái chức năng knock, tức nghĩa nó sẽ tạo ra một cái phòng. Chúng ta có thể bỏ những cái điều quan trọng của chúng ta vào trong đó. Nếu trong trường hợp mà cái phòng bị tác động bởi bên thứ ba thì tự động nó sẽ có cơ chế hủy.
According to Kaspersky, in the fourth quarter of 2017, Vietnam ranked fifth in the world in terms of denial of service or DDoS attacks, which overwhelmed targeted websites by creating fake traffic. A number of notable solutions were introduced for this problem at the event.
Chúng tôi sẽ có những cái thiết bị đặt trước cái đường truyền của các doanh nghiệp và chúng tôi cũng có những cái thiết bị đặt ở phía trên nhà cung cấp Internet. Và những cái thiết bị này cho phép là gì? Là bắt tay với nhau để khi các cái doanh nghiệp cần sự ứng cứu từ nhà cung cấp dịch vụ sẽ có cái phần mà tự động là xử lý ở trên nhà cung cấp dịch vụ trước khi mà trả cái băng thông sạch về cho người dùng.
One of the main causes for cyber attacks are the loopholes in the application. Parasoft introduced a solution that has been used by over 8,000 developers in the world.
The main thing that we try to tell people is that, if you can shift to the left to test your source codes, then you can fix it earlier and fix it faster because it's fresh in your developer's mind.
Apart from digital solutions, experts say that user awareness is also a key factor in dealing with cyber risks.
Now, the recently held conference, Security World 2018, recently took place in Hanoi on April the 5th. What do you think about the discussions and the solutions proposed at the conference?
Security World Hanoi is a very good annual conference. It's driven obviously by the need for improved cyber technology and reducing cyber risk. The focus is generally on technology, however, which is great because the technology vendors come to Hanoi and introduce innovative and emerging concepts that Vietnam business leaders and government need to consider for their overall strategies. I do think there'd be a good opportunity to use that forum as an educational instrument to inform and make the delegates aware of processes and policies and legislation that is critical to the protection of cybersecurity. A good example might have been a presentation on the Vietnam law for network information security, for example. So you had a huge audience there and a recently issued critical piece of legislation. So that, I think, would have been a very good opportunity to present on that law. Having said that, there was one presentation towards the end on user education, which was not about technology or platforms, but it was about 10 things you can do to keep your users educated around cybersecurity.
Now, you have years of experience dealing with security problems in digital economy of other countries. So what are the most popular and effective solutions there?
In Australia and in Europe and the US, for example, one of the key differences that I see here is that security is an agenda at the highest level in an organization, typically at the board of directors and at least at the board of management level. So that's a key difference, I think, in terms of the recognition for the need for good security practices and the involvement of the executive level management into delivery of security strategy and security practices. The business owners, the application owners, the system owners in the West, they are the people who are responsible for the security of those systems. They have a vested interest to make sure those systems are secure. They therefore dictate in part what IT must deliver for them. But in Vietnam it seems a little bit different, that it's often still seen as an IT problem. Things like legislation in the West is also quite mature now. For example, in Australia, the Privacy Act and data breach notification laws and things have been around, particularly the Privacy Act, for a long time. So that plays an important part in driving the compliance within organizations because there's strong legislation behind those laws.
Now, what are the most effective measures, particularly for the Vietnam market, to prevent cybersecurity risks, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think a combination of legislation and internal policy compliance and education and what's called assurance or regular review of systems and auditing of activities. But if I talk about legislation, Vietnam's made a big step forward recently with the introduction of the Vietnam law on network information security, which took effect nearly a year and a half ago, I think, or nearly 2 years ago. So that's effectively a cybersecurity law. And so that is a great step forward, a great leadership position adopted by the government. And now what they're doing is further underpinning that policy through getting government agencies like the Ministry of Information and Communication to take responsibility for compliance, education and compliance enforcement. So really, compliance enforcement is one of the key things that Vietnam needs to do in terms of closing the gap, if you like, in terms of assuring better online activities and compliance to the government legislation is very critical. User education, which is a repeating theme, if you like. If you talk to security practitioners anywhere, they will repeat the theme that users are really the front line of defence in any organisation or in any government. So the user education is key. Users need to be made aware of how they should operate and what a security threat would look like. And if they see something suspicious, how do they know and how do they react? So user education is very key. And in fact, the Vietnam law on network information security makes that very clear. The IT service providers, the technology providers, through their distribution network and their network of resellers, already provide best of class products into the Vietnamese market. The delivery of technology products in Vietnam at the moment is very good, and the vendors are doing a fantastic job.
A number of directives for information security have been implemented in Vietnam. Some of the earliest include the Law on Information Technology 2006 and the Law on Telecommunications 2009. The Law on Information Security went into effect on July 1, 2016 and was the first legal standard for information security. Most recently, in 2017, the Prime Minister approved a project that will enhance the cybersecurity incident response network.
Trung tâm ứng cứu khẩn cấp máy tính Việt Nam được giao là đơn vị điều phối và thường trực để thực hiện các cái nhiệm vụ trong các cái hệ thống phương án ứng cứu khẩn cấp quốc gia. Trong cái mạng lưới ứng cứu quốc gia này thì chúng tôi có thể tham vấn một số các đơn vị hoặc các nhà cung cấp giải pháp dịch vụ về an toàn thông tin.
According to experts, in order for laws on cyber and information security to be effective, there must be regulations to ensure the compliance of businesses and individuals.
And very pointed point that I would make is how important it is that whatever policy we make in this space is clear in what requirements are necessary for businesses and for users. And that users understand and businesses understand what the consequences of their choices are.
Experts also believe that collaboration between governmental agencies and businesses are effective in ensuring cybersecurity.
The Vietnamese government will strive to do now in answering questions relating to cybersecurity. They will look at other countries, they will talk to industry players, regulators, companies like Ericsson and Facebook and Google to try and find the best way forward.
Cybersecurity is pretty complex. There is no simple answer for it. There is no one solution. It's the strong relationships, I think, is what we found, I guess, in our experience, was the relationships of the different businesses that we were working with.
The law on cybersecurity is still being developed and is expected to be approved in May. The new law is considered the next step in ensuring cybersecurity in Vietnam for the digital era.
What are your recommendations for policymakers in Vietnam to deal with cyber risks?
As I mentioned before, this Vietnamese law on network information security has made a huge step forward, particularly in relation to the protection of personal information. So there are various articles in this law which now stipulate how government and organizations and even individuals must manage and protect personal information. So there are strong principles in this policy around the protection of personal information which haven't been seen before in Vietnam. So in terms of if I could make any recommendations going forward, what's really needed and what's actually being done, as far as I know, from agencies like the Ministry of Information and Communication and the Ministry of Public Security, is that you need a strong compliance enforcement program. So Any law in any country always takes a long time to embed. And so what's happening now is we're in that period where communication and awareness about the law needs to be increased. Businesses need to be made aware of their obligations under the law, particularly in relation to protection of personal information. And then a strong compliance enforcement program should be developed to ensure businesses and organisations are compliant to the law. And then if they're not, there needs to be appropriate level sanctions.
Now, how do you think the government, enterprises and individual users can collaborate to minimize security risks in the digital economy?
The collaboration really needs to be, it's part of a cybersecurity strategy, and it needs to be led by the government. And I mentioned before about the laws and the legislation that they're putting in place and have put in place. So that, again, that sets the leadership example, and the collaborative effort that is needed, which is around, as I mentioned before, not only the government, but also business leaders, information security service providers, technology vendors, key members of the community, and very importantly, key members of the educational institutions. A cybersecurity collaborative partnership involving all those groups is something that would help with collaboration and delivery of cybersecurity services to reduce the risk of from operating online. Other things such as, I've mentioned user education. So the cybersecurity partnership could identify key methods and implement key online technologies, even if you like, to educate users. And I can give you a small example for that. The Australian government has implemented, as part of their cybersecurity strategy, something called Stay Smart Online. And it's a very common language, easy to use, educational website that users can go to, and it instructs them on how to manage privacy issues with things like Facebook, which is very topical at the moment given what's happened recently, and how to avoid scammers and how to avoid certain threats. I think the security service providers in Vietnam need to try and act more as a community and help deliver user education services back to businesses, and even back to the government, as part of reducing the risk and improving overall user awareness for cybersecurity.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It's been great. Thank you very much for having me.
According to research by Tufts University in the US, Vietnam ranks 48th out of 60 countries and territories in the Digital Evolution Index 2017 and ranks 22nd in the Digital Evolution Momentum Score. Experts believe that the digital trend will continue with the boom of information technology in the fourth industrial revolution. As a result, participants in the digital economy need to be more responsible about the security of their information. Experts and policymakers also need to work more closely together to minimize security risks so that connection and sharing in the digital era can continue to be the driving force in transforming the economy. And that also wraps up this edition of BizLine. In the meantime, you can log on to vtv4.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go for more of our programs and updates. From our team here in Hanoi, until next time.